All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Chong Chunyan, and I'll be presenting the introduction. So let's start with the what. What is critical thinking? So critical thinking is the active process where information is analyzed and evaluated uh, objectively. So we use to critical thinking to navigate complex decisions based on evidence. Now, now then why do we need critical thinking? So it's because critical thinking is an important everyday skill to prevent cognitive bias and making errors. So is there evidence for what I said? Actually, there is. The act of ignoring crucial data ended up ending the lives of uh, the people up in the NASA Challenger because of overlooked evidence. So lastly, how do we protect ourselves against this? We need a solid system like the Paul Elder framework, which we will analyze further down the presentation. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and I'll pass it to the next group mate to explain what the 8 standards are. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ara Sultan Oresnefesova, and for my part, this slide presents the 8 standards of critical thinking and a brief overview of what each man means. First is clarity. It means you clearly communicate your concepts and make it crystal clear what you mean to say. Writing is effective when you help the reader understand your point by providing explanations and examples. Second is accuracy. Your information should be true and trustworthy. You must verify your information to make sure you are not making mistakes through miscommunication or misinterpretation, and you should use examples and cited sources to validate your ideas. Third is precision. This means using precise language that conveys detailed and specific information. You shouldn't use vague or general terms when explaining your concepts, and you should provide precise and accurate details to enhance understanding. Fourth is relevance. You should stay focused on the subject and not include irrelevant, unnecessary, or unrelated information. Each aspect should support the main issue. Fifth is breadth. This means observing the various viewpoints or perspectives of the issue, investigating multiple ways of looking at it, and viewing the larger context of an issue in relation to other issues. Sixth is depth. It means exploring thoroughly and with caution the issues being addressed, thinking about underlying issues and the complexities, and not merely brushing at the top of the issue. Seventh is logic. Your ideas should progress in a logical order and follow a timeline or structure that makes sense. Use logical reasoning, avoid reasoning errors, and provide evidence to support conclusions. And finally, fairness. This means being unbiased, accepting diverse perspectives and opinions, considering multiple perspectives, treating them fairly, and making decisions based on facts and evidence. So, overall, these standards guide us to think and communicate in a clear, accurate, and fair way when analyzing an issue.
Problem-solving with standards. When standards are present, problem-solving becomes more structured and systematic. Standards provide clear and strict criteria for evaluating evidence, comparing alternatives, and selecting appropriate solutions. This makes decision-making more transparent and consistent. For example, Williams and Fitch all integrating science and practice 2017 stat, the ISSAP case-based radiography training program, where students use evidence-based clinical guidelines to make diagnostic decisions. Because they follow established professional standards, their reasoning becomes more organized and reliable. Standards in this context helps connect theory with practice and improve the quality of outcomes. The impact of problem-solving with standards is greater consistency and reliability, evidence-based decision-making, clear justification of choices, and reduce uh, uncertainty in complex situations. However, if standards are applied too rigidly, They may limit flexibility when dealing with unusual or unpredictable problems. Problem solving without standards. Without standards, individuals rely mainly on personal judgment, intuition, or past experience. This may allow for creative or unconventional solutions, especially in new or ambiguous situations. However, as discussed in Comparer's critical thinking broken by John, the lack of structured reasoning frameworks can lead to based thinking and fluid conclusions. Without shared criteria for evaluating arguments or evidence, it becomes difficult to determine whether a solution is logically sound or simply based on personal belief. The impact of problem-solving without standards is more flexibility and potential creativity, higher variability in decisions, increased risk of bias and inconsistency, and difficulty evaluating the quality of solutions.
To understand how we apply critical thinking to real-world problems, we use a systematic application framework. Instead of relying on gut feeling, this process flow ensures every decision is filtered through rigorous intellectual standards to prevent catastrophic errors. Our first step is foundation and definition. We begin with clarity and accuracy. This means clearly defining technical issues like the specific O-ring failure risk, so there is no misinterpretation by non-technical stakeholders. We then perform data verification. Every decision must be based on verified, trustworthy data to eliminate the normalization of deviance or the dangerous assumption that past success guarantee future safety. Step 2. Once the foundation is set, we move into a diagnostic deep dive. Here, we focus on precision. We move away from vague generalizations and use specific language to describe risks, focusing on exact temperature ranges and failure probabilities. This is followed by complexity analysis, or that we must probe underlying issues and hidden organization pressures that might tempt management to overlook technical evidence. The third stage is evaluation and perspective. We apply breadth by investigation, multiple perspective. This involves actively listening to diverse stakeholders, including engineers, safety teams, and management. Simultaneously, we maintain relevance, we keep a strict focus on safety critical data and filter out irrelevant noise like schedule pressures or public relations concerns. Finally, we reach synthesis and decision. We look for a logical flow. The final conclusion, such as postponing a high-risk launch, must be a direct, consistent result of our evidence provided. Lastly, we ensure fairness. We treat all dissenting technical opinion with equal weight, ensuring that safety concerns are never unfairly overruled by organizational authority. By following this framework, we ensure that problem solving is organized and facilitated by specific criteria, rather than subjective opinion, ultimately protecting against the types of failures seen in cases like the NASA Challenger disaster. Thank you.
I'm Yusra. The ineffective application of critical thinking led to NASA Challenger disaster. This disaster is about the explosion of the US space shuttle that was launched from Florida. However, it was crashed due to a malfunction in the seal of one of its boosters. Although the main contractor had prevented NASA from initiating the launch, his suggestion was disregarded. Due to the malfunctioning of the seal, the accident was due to lack of communication and it also resulted in death. Now let's look at the event timeline. Before launch, the freezing temperatures will lead to O-ring failure. Still, the Kennedy Space Center launched the rocket in these conditions. On the launch day, the rocket was launched at 11:38 a.m. and after 73 seconds, the failed O-ring caused a breakup which led to the death of every crew member. After the failed launch, Rogers Commission was formed by President Ronald Reagan. Its cause was found to be the O-ring failure due to the cold weather, and the decision was taken to stop all flights until 1998, where all flights were resumed.
Hi, I'm Vinayak, and I'm going to be talking about the 8 critical thinking failures in the Challenger disaster. First, there was a failure of clarity because engineers were worried that low temperatures could actually cause the O-ring to fail, but the risk was not explained strongly enough. And instead of clearly saying that the shuttle could explode, the warning just sounded uncertain, which made danger seem less serious. Second, there was a failure of accuracy because there was already evidence that the damage of the O-ring damaged in earlier scenarios, and but instead of treating it in a serious warning, decision makers just assume everything would be fine since no disaster has happened before, and it's not going to happen again. And this is actually known as normalization of deviance, where small problems slowly become accepted as normal. Third, precision was also lacking because there were already precision was also lacking because the risks were discussed in general terms instead of clearly stating exact temperature ranges and strong data. And when information is actually not specific, it becomes easier to ignore. And fourth, relevance was also compromised because schedule pressure and public attention actually influenced the launch decision, even though these factors were not actually compared were not actually important compared to safety evidence. Irrelevant pressures may affect decisions and can lose objectivity. So yeah, and moving along, fifth, there was lack of depth because the full impact of extreme cold on the O-ring material was not properly explored, and the worst case scenario was not seriously considered, which actually shows shallow thinking in high risk situations. Sixth, breadth failed because engineers who disagreed were not actually equally considered, and by limiting different perspectives, management reduced the quality of the final decision. Seventh, there was also flawed logic because the reasoning was that it worked before, so it will work again, which is a dangerous assumption, especially when conditions are different. Finally, fairness was absent because engineering experts was overruled by management authority, and instead of proving that the launch was safe, engineers were asked to prove it would fail, which created an unfair and unsafe decision process. So yeah, in conclusion, the Challenger disaster actually shows us that when all 8 critical thinking standards are ignored under pressure, the result can actually be very catastrophic. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Mahana Rizwan, and I will talk about the consequences of this. The first one is human failure, which is the worst one, where 7 lives were lost only because the engineering concerns were overruled. Why? Because there was a time constraint, which resulted in a direct failure. The disaster showed very clearly that NASA's flawed decision making, where the normalization of deviance replaces the objective analysis. The second consequences that they faced was a systematic failure or a financial failure. And this is because the shuttle was grounded for almost 3 years, which costed billions of dollars due to just the delays and redesigning the whole mission. The public trust was also lost. It was destroyed because when a live televised tragedy was broadcasted, it was completely breaking the confidence in NASA, which was supposedly a very highly trusted institution. Going forward, the Challenger disaster remained a major case study showing what happens when clarity, accuracy, and relevance are not even considered under such timely pressure. The disaster proved that the critical thinking is protection against much more catastrophic errors in the future.
Yes, my name is Chen Yuteng. Now I'm going to show about post-event effective application. First, clarity. Clearly expressed engineers' concerns such as O-rings can fail at low temperature, which can lead to an explosion. Second, accuracy. All data must be verified. Launch decision cannot be based on it should be fine. Third, precision. Risk must be specified down to temperature, range, probability of failure, and severity of impact. Fourth, relevance. Meetings should only discuss safety-related evidence, cannot be influenced by schedule pressure. Fifth, deep analysis of why the hidden dangers cannot be solved for years and why management might overturn the engineer's decision. 6. F. Listen to different perspectives, including those from engineering, safety, and management. 7. Logic. Evidence indicate a higher risk at low temperatures. The logical conclusion is to postpone the launch. 8. Fairness. Treat dissenting opinions fairly. Do not ignore engineers because of authority or pressure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline. I will be highlighting 3 key takeaways about safety and decision making. First, when there are safety concerns, especially with incomplete data, the correct action is to delay. Moving forward without full confidence increases risk, and deadlines or organizational pressure should never come before safety. Second, organizations must protect and encourage dissenting technical opinions. Engineers and technical experts need to be able to raise concerns openly, and those concerns must be documented and escalated, not ignored or reshaped to fit management expectation. Third, high-risk organization needs independent safety, oversight, and transparent reporting. There must be clear go or no-go authority that is separate from schedule-driven management, so decisions are based on safety and evidence, not deadlines. In summary, prioritizing safety, encouraging open communication, and ensuring independent oversight are essential to preventing serious failures. And that's all from me. I'll pass the floor to Isabel.
Hi, my name is Isabel, and I'll be finishing off our presentation by going on with the conclusion. So, in conclusion, critical thinking isn't just being smart, it is the ultimate safety system. In 1986, instead of asking, is it safe to fly? The question became, can you prove that it's unsafe? And this subtle shift in logic and ignoring the evidence is what led to the NASA Challenger disaster that we just talked about. Critical thinking requires the courage to be the loyal opposition, to prioritize the cold hard data over the heat of a deadline, and it is the discipline to recognize our own biases before they become fatal. As we conclude, a lesson that I believe we as students can all bring forward into the future is that the most sophisticated tool we have isn't the hardware or the software. It is the willingness to ask why when everyone else is already set on saying yes. Because in our field, a lack of critical thinking isn't just an oversight, it is a choice with consequences. And it is having the courage to challenge assumptions when stakes are the highest. So with that, I conclude, and this is the end of Group 43's presentation. Thank you.